What if the dishwasher at your favorite restaurant wasn't who she claimed to be? She scrubbed dishes in silence, ignored by everyone. Her hair was always hidden under a cheap scarf, her eyes cast down, her smile unseen. But behind those quiet eyes was a secret that could burn an empire to the ground. No one knew she once owned a luxury restaurant overseas. No one knew she lost it all in a scandal that was never her fault. And definitely no one expected that the same men who destroyed her life were about to walk into this restaurant with another dirty deal. But this time, she was ready. What started as a harmless prank, a joke by the arrogant restaurant owner to embarrass a poor dishwasher, turned into the biggest shock of his life. Because when she picked up the contract and started reading aloud, everyone froze. And that's when the truth came out. Stay with us to the end, because this story, it doesn't just twist, it explodes. Thomas Whitaker, the owner of Whitaker's Fine Dining, stood in front of the mirror in his office, tugging at his tie and sighing. He didn't like what he saw anymore. Wrinkles were settling deeper into his forehead, the stress of long nights and even longer regrets hanging on his shoulders like wet concrete. He hadn't seen his wife Catherine awake in days. Not really. He left before she got up, returned long after she had gone to bed. If things continued like this, she wouldn't just stop loving him. She'd find someone else who had the time to care. The vibration of his phone snapped him back to reality. Catherine. "Hey, babe," Thomas said, forcing some warmth into his voice. "Was just thinking about you." "Were you?" she replied coldly. "Because it doesn't feel like it." He closed his eyes, already picturing her perfectly sculpted pout and those piercing glares she threw when she felt ignored. Catherine had always loved the finer things, designer bags, spa weekends, lavish trips, but she'd long stopped appreciating the man funding them. Leonard quit today," Thomas muttered. "The restaurant's falling apart. I have a meeting with new spice suppliers tomorrow, and I haven't even looked at the contract." "Oh, I'm sure you'll figure it out," Catherine snapped. "You always do." And with that, the call ended. Thomas groaned, tossing the phone onto the desk. It landed next to the resignation letter from Leonard Parks, the general manager who had just walked out. That made 3 managers in 2 years. It wasn't the business, it was him. He had become impossible. As he stepped into the kitchen to blow off steam, he caught the end of an exchange between Jake, the barista, and Emily, the dishwasher. Jake was holding up a glass. "Hey, Emily, missed a spot again. You might want to actually clean it this time." Emily looked at the glass, tilted her head, and calmly replied, "Where's the spot?" Jake pointed to the tiniest speck of dust on the rim. The servers nearby smirked, watching the showdown with glee. They loved it when someone took a swing at Emily. She was too quiet, too mysterious. She didn't joke around, didn't gossip, didn't cry, and she never fought back. Emily took the glass, wiped it gently with her cloth, and handed it back. "There. Happy?" She turned and walked away, completely unaffected. Jake stood there fuming, not at her, but at how she always slipped out of his reach emotionally, like a shadow that wouldn't crack. Thomas had seen enough. "Screw this," he muttered and walked over to the bar. "Jake, what the hell was that?" Jake straightened up. "Just making sure she does her job. You couldn't provoke a kitten. I told you I wanted her out. If she's not gone by next week, you can join her." Heck, Jake hesitated, but only for a second. "She's good at her job, boss. Fast, clean, quiet. She's not stealing anything. What's the real problem?" "The problem is I don't like her," Thomas snapped, slamming his palm on the bar. "She's not supposed to be here. The employment center sent her to me, and I want her gone." Jake kept his cool. "You're just angry. This isn't about her." Thomas's face reddened. "You know what? You're right, I am angry, which is why you're fired. Go work somewhere else and play psychologist there." "Fine," Jake said, quietly untying his apron. "I'll pack up." And just like that, another decent person was out the door. Later that evening, Emily cracked the back kitchen window and breathed in the crisp winter air. She didn't cry. She never cried anymore. The sting of rumors, the whispers that she was a charity case, a homeless girl given a job out of pity, had dulled long ago. Let them think what they wanted. She scrubbed harder. They didn't know she had once stood on a professional stage. They didn't know the quiet, cold dishwasher had once danced under the Moroccan sun. And they sure as hell didn't know about Lily, the little girl waiting for her in a low-income daycare across town. As the restaurant closed and Emily hung up her apron, Jake appeared from the shadows near the back door. He looked nervous, holding a small brown box. I wanted to say sorry," he mumbled, "for earlier, and this is for you." Emily narrowed her eyes, sniffing the box. Chocolate. Real chocolate. With cinnamon and vanilla, and something warm, something nostalgic. "I didn't buy it," Jake admitted. "The pastry chef made it, but no one ordered it tonight. They gave it to me, and I thought maybe you'd want some." For a second, she considered walking away, but then she smiled. A faint, mysterious smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Okay, let's share it. You got tea?" Jake blinked. "What?" "I said let's share it. At my place. But don't get any ideas. This is just tea and cake. Not a date." That night, as Jake stepped into Emily's small apartment for the first time, he knew something about this woman was nothing like what she seemed. Thanks for watching. What do you think Emily is hiding from her past? Why do you think Thomas hates her so much? Is it personal or something deeper? Have you ever misjudged someone based on their job or appearance, only to find out they were someone extraordinary? If this story is pulling you in, drop your thoughts in the comments and tell us, which country are you watching from? Don't forget to share this video with someone who loves a good twist. Jake had never been inside a place quite like this. Emily's apartment was small, worn, maybe even crumbling around the edges, but it had a warmth he couldn't explain. Yellow curtains danced in the breeze from the cracked window. Mismatched furniture created a cozy sort of chaos, and a faint scent of cinnamon and old books lingered in the air. He followed her into the tiny kitchen, where a kettle was already starting to whistle. "Sit," Emily said, motioning toward the windowsill, padded with old pillows. "We'll eat here. No dining table." Jake dropped onto the cushion and placed the box of cake between them. As she poured the tea, his eyes wandered around the kitchen and landed on something that made his stomach twist. There, stuck to the fridge with a faded magnet, was a photograph. A little girl with curly dark hair stood on a sunlit balcony beside a man. Young, handsome, laughing like the world had given him everything. The girl had the same intense eyes as Emily. "Is that your daughter?" Jake asked softly, pointing to the photo. Emily looked over her shoulder and paused. "Yeah, her name's Lily. She's 5. Jake's curiosity got the better of him. "And the guy?" She didn't answer immediately. Her fingers tightened around the teacup, her jaw clenched just slightly. "That was her father," she said at last. "He's gone." "I'm sorry," Jake said, meaning it. Emily shrugged, but there was a flicker in her eyes. Pain still very much alive, just buried under layers of strength. "He passed away when Lily was a baby. He was, part of something I don't talk about." Jake nodded, sensing the boundary and deciding not to push. The two sat quietly, the clink of spoons and soft music from a neighbor's apartment filling the silence. Then, unexpectedly, Emily turned to him with a smile that was far too mysterious to be innocent. "Do you still think I'm just a dishwasher?" she asked. Jake chuckled nervously. "Honestly, no, not after that weird judo move you pulled on me yesterday." Her laughter burst out like a sudden melody, rare, beautiful, and startling. "I needed you to learn some respect, fast." Jake leaned forward. "So tell me the truth. Who are you, really?" Emily looked down at her tea for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was low and steady. "I used to be someone else. Someone who danced for a living, someone who had a home, a partner, a dream. We traveled to Morocco for a dance festival. Everything changed there." She didn't elaborate, but Jake heard the pain woven into every word. "Let me guess. Something happened that wasn't in the program." Emily nodded. "He was injured during a stage collapse. Never danced again. We tried to rebuild, opened a restaurant, had Lily. Then, things went bad. Really bad." Jake's eyes widened. "You owned a restaurant." "I co-owned one," she corrected, "until the spice shipment we imported turned out to be a cover for something else. Drugs. My partner didn't know. I didn't know. But the men behind it, well, they vanished before we could explain anything. He died shortly after. I took Lily and ran. Jake stared at her, stunned. You're telling me you were framed? That your life was destroyed over a shipment you didn't even know was illegal? That's exactly what I'm telling you, Emily whispered. So now I hide, because if they ever find me again, I don't know what they'd do. A knock interrupted the silence. Jake instinctively stood, but Emily waved him off. It's probably my neighbor. But when she opened the door, her entire body stiffened. Standing there was Thomas Whitaker, looking surprisingly uncomfortable for a man used to towering over everyone. Evening, he said. I hope I'm not interrupting. Jake stepped into view, folding his arms. Yeah, kind of. Thomas didn't even look at him. His eyes were locked on Emily. I need to talk to you. Alone. Emily hesitated, then stepped outside with him, closing the door behind her. Jake pressed his ear to the wood. I need a favor, Thomas said. Emily raised an eyebrow. That's rich. You fire my only ally, and now you show up here? I'm desperate, he admitted. I've got a meeting with potential spice suppliers tomorrow. My wife was supposed to be there, but she's throwing a tantrum and wants to play games. She's making me bring someone else and pretend they're my wife. Emily stared at him. You want me to pretend to be your wife? Just for an hour, Thomas pleaded. Sign the papers, not at the right times, and then walk away. Why me? He looked away. Because they're expecting a humble, hard-working woman. You fit the part. Emily took a long, deep breath, then leaned in close. And what if I say no? Thomas's voice dropped. Then I lose everything. She considered him for a moment, then smiled. But it wasn't warm. It was calculating. Fine, she said. I'll do it. But if I find out these spice suppliers are the same kind of crooks that ruined my life once, you'll regret ever knocking on my door. Thomas blinked, startled. What? Nothing, Emily said, turning on her heel. I'll see you tomorrow. Boss? As she stepped back inside and closed the door, Jake was already standing in the kitchen, arms crossed. What was that about? He asked. Emily met his eyes and said calmly, just business. Thanks for watching. What do you think Emily's real plan is for tomorrow's meeting? Is she really helping Thomas or playing a dangerous game of her own? Share your theories in the comments. The next morning, Emily stood in the mirror wearing a sleek navy blue dress Thomas had sent over. Her blonde wig was neatly styled, her face lightly made up. She didn't look like the quiet dishwasher anymore. She looked like a woman with secrets and a plan. Jake stood behind her, his arms folded, watching her like someone about to lose something important. You sure you want to go through with this? He asked. Emily turned, her eyes unwavering. I have to. He wanted to stop her, but he also knew Emily was like a storm. You don't tell a storm where to go. You just try not to get swept up in it. At the restaurant, Thomas was pacing in his office, nervously straightening his cuffs. He glanced at the clock. Any minute now, the suppliers would arrive, and so would his wife, who still believed she was the star of a secret performance. Then the door opened. Emily stepped in, graceful, calm, and radiating elegance. For a moment, Thomas just stared. You look convincing, Emily smirked. Careful, that almost sounded like a compliment. He handed her a clipboard. Just sit beside me, smile, nod. Sign this at the right moment. That's all. She looked down at the contract. You ever actually read these things? No, he said. That's what lawyers are for. Her smile tightened. Right. Moments later, the spice suppliers entered the room. Two sharply dressed men with polished shoes and oily smiles. One of them carried a leather case. The other scanned Emily with a too long glance. This must be your lovely wife, the taller one said. Charmed. Emily reached out and shook his hand with just enough pressure to make him blink. Ignacio Jamison, he said, turning to Thomas. Let's get down to business. As the men pulled out their documents and began talking numbers, Emily silently flipped through the pages. Everything looked proper, except one detail. The name of the exporting company, Suncrest Imports. Her heart stuttered. She had seen that name before, in Morocco, on the fake invoices that nearly got her arrested. Her hands trembled slightly, but she composed herself. When the time came to sign, she gently placed her hand over the paper. "Wait," she said. The room fell silent. Even Thomas looked confused. "These terms, they seem unusual," she said smoothly. "May I ask, who handles your logistics on the US side?" Ignacio smiled too fast. "That's confidential." Emily looked up at Thomas, her voice sharp now. "This is the same company that was raided last year in New Orleans, shipping illegal substances hidden in spice sacks." Thomas blinked. "What are you talking about?" "You didn't do your research, did you?" she said quietly. "These men aren't suppliers. They're traffickers." Ignacio's face darkened. "Now just a minute." Emily stood, fire in her voice. "You tried this once before, with my restaurant. You planted product in our inventory. My partner died, and I lost everything because of you." Jake suddenly appeared in the doorway, phone in hand. "Police are on their way." "You called the cops?" Thomas gasped. "No," Jake said. "Emily did, 15 minutes ago, just in case." Sirens wailed in the distance. Ignacio cursed and bolted for the exit, but Thomas blocked the door. "You're not going anywhere." The second man tried to push past, but Jake grabbed him and slammed him against the wall just as two officers burst into the room. It was chaos. Papers flying, cuffs snapping, voices shouting. Emily stood perfectly still in the center of it all, as calm as a queen watching pawns scatter. When it was over and the police had taken the men away, Thomas slumped into his chair like his spine had turned to water. "You saved my business," he whispered, "and probably my life." Emily didn't answer. She simply picked up the contract and tore it in half. Jake came to stand beside her. "You all right?" he asked. She gave him a tired smile. "I will be." Thomas looked up. "Emily, I don't know how to repay you." "You don't need to," she said, her voice soft now. "But maybe learn how to treat people better." She turned to walk away, but Thomas stopped her again. "Wait, there's something else. I did some digging after last night, and I found something. About Jake." Jake looked confused. "About me?" Thomas stood and handed him a photo. It was old, faded, but there was no mistaking the face. "My ex-girlfriend," Thomas said quietly. "She disappeared when she was pregnant. I tried to find her for years, but I gave up. That's her." "That's your mother." Jake's mouth dropped open. "What?" "I'm your father," Thomas said. "And a terrible one. But I want to change that, if you'll let me." Jake looked at Emily, then at the man he'd grown to hate. The man who, despite everything, was trying to do something right, maybe for the first time. "I don't know," Jake said, "but maybe we start with coffee." Thomas nodded, eyes wet. "That's enough." 1 week later, Emily stood on the restaurant's newly polished floor. She wore a blazer, hair tied back, clipboard in hand. She was the new general manager. Jake was beside her, now the assistant manager. "And Thomas?" He smiled from across the room, talking to customers like a man reborn. "Sometimes redemption takes the most unlikely path, and sometimes the dishwasher is actually the storm that saves you." Thanks for watching. What did you think of the story's ending? Did Emily's final twist surprise you? If you love this journey, comment 100 below to let us know. Tell us which country you're watching from. And don't forget to share this video with someone who loves powerful emotional stories.